In the African tribe, I took the best. The dense jungle stretched endlessly before me, its humid air clinging to my skin as I stepped cautiously into the unknown. The rhythmic beating of drums echoed through the trees, a sound both mesmerizing and intimidating. I wasn't supposed to be here. I had come to this remote land as an outsider, a foreigner seeking adventure. But what I found was something I never expected. Him. The moment our eyes met, something inside me shifted. He was unlike anyone I had ever seen. Strong, confident, untamed. His dark skin glowed under the flickering torchlight, his body sculpted like a warrior's, his presence commanding yet impossibly alluring. I didn't know the rules of this place. I didn't understand their ways, but I knew one thing: I wanted him, and I would soon learn that in this tribe, desire was a dangerous game. Stay with me until the end of this story, because what happened next changed everything. This is not just a tale of passion. It is one of power, choice, and the kind of attraction that defies all logic. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring you more thrilling and emotional stories like this one. Now, let's dive into today's gripping tale. The jungle was alive around me. Every breath I took was thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, the distant echo of drums reverberating through the trees. Shadows danced beneath the moonlight, flickering as I took cautious steps forward. I wasn't supposed to be here. The journey had started as nothing more than a reckless adventure. I had always been drawn to the unknown, eager to push the boundaries of my world. But I never expected to find myself deep in the heart of Africa, stepping into a place untouched by time, a place where outsiders were not welcome. Yet here I was. The tribal village appeared before me like something out of a dream. Dozens of wooden huts, torches casting golden flames into the night, and people, warriors, hunters, elders, women draped in intricate beads and fabrics, all turning to look at me. I had been warned not to come, told that this place did not welcome men like me, but I had never been good at listening. And then I saw him. At the center of it all, standing by the fire, was a man unlike any I had ever seen. Tall, broad-shouldered, his dark skin gleaming under the flickering light, muscles carved by years of battle and survival. He stood with effortless power, his gaze sharp, assessing, piercing through me like he already knew everything about me, every weakness, every hidden desire. I should have looked away. I should have felt fear, but all I felt was heat. His name was Omari. I didn't need to hear it spoken to know that he was the one who led them, the one they followed, the one they feared, and maybe the one they loved. Omari's eyes didn't leave mine as I was pulled forward. The tribe's leader, an elder with lines of wisdom etched into his face, spoke in a language I didn't understand. But I didn't need a translation to grasp the meaning. What was I doing here? What did I want? I swallowed hard, my pulse pounding in my ears. The truth was, I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to admit it. Omari stepped closer, and the space between us disappeared. "You are far from home," he said, his voice deep, accented, filled with something unreadable. I nodded, unable to speak. "You seek something." It wasn't a question. It was a fact, one that unsettled me. I should have lied. I should have said I was lost. But standing there, with his gaze locked onto mine, lying didn't feel like an option. "I don't know what I'm looking for," I admitted. Omari studied me for a long moment. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, he reached out and touched my chest, just a brief graze of fingers against my skin, but it sent a shiver down my spine. "The jungle has a way of revealing what men truly desire," he murmured. The fire crackled beside us, but it wasn't nearly as hot as the way he looked at me. I knew then I was in trouble, because in this tribe, desire was a dangerous thing, and Omari was the kind of man who never let something he wanted escape. The fire flickered between us, but it wasn't nearly as hot as the tension in the air. Omari's dark eyes held mine, steady and unwavering. I could feel the weight of his presence, the quiet authority he carried in every movement. He hadn't looked away from me since I arrived, and the way he studied me, assessing, calculating, made my skin burn in ways I didn't understand. The other men in the tribe watched too, some with curiosity, others with suspicion. I was an outsider, a man who had wandered where he did not belong, and yet I wasn't being thrown out because of him. Omari turned slightly, speaking in his native tongue to the elder beside him. The older man nodded, his expression unreadable, before addressing the tribe. The murmurs that followed sent a shiver up my spine. I didn't need to understand the language to know that I was being discussed. Omari's gaze returned to mine. He took a slow step forward, and the others stepped back, giving him space, giving us space. "You came here without fear," he said, his voice deep, controlled. I swallowed, my mouth dry. I didn't know what I was walking into. He tilted his head as if considering my words. Then his lips curled into the barest hint of a smirk. "And now that you do?" The truth sat heavy on my tongue. I should have been afraid. I should have wanted to run. But I didn't. Omari reached out, and before I could stop him, his fingers traced the side of my face. Light, barely a touch, yet it sent a shock through my body. I sucked in a sharp breath. "What are you doing?" His gaze flickered, something unreadable in his expression. "You came here seeking something," he said. "Now I want to know. Do you want to leave?" The question settled in my chest like a stone. Did I? I had spent my entire life chasing the unknown, searching for something I couldn't name. And now, standing here, with this man. This powerful, enigmatic man looking at me like he already knew what I hadn't yet admitted to myself. I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to know what this was. I wanted to know why I couldn't look away from him. I wanted to know why my pulse was racing, why my breath was shallow, why the way he stood so close made my entire body feel like it was standing on the edge of something dangerous. The flames crackled between us, and I knew that whatever was happening, it was already too late to turn back. Omari exhaled, his fingers still grazing my skin. "Then stay," he murmured. And just like that, my fate was sealed. The night was thick with the scent of burning wood and damp earth, the jungle humming with unseen life. I stood frozen in place, my heart pounding against my ribs as Omari's words settled deep inside me. Then stay. I had no reason to. I had no reason to trust him, no reason to linger in a place that wasn't mine. And yet, I didn't move. Omari watched me, his expression unreadable. The other men in the tribe slowly turned away, as if my fate had already been decided. There was no ceremony, no announcement. It was as if, in their eyes, I had already made my choice. Maybe I had. Omari nodded slightly, then turned, walking through the village without looking back. I hesitated for a breath before following him. The moment I stepped deeper into the tribe, I felt it. The weight of their stares, the whispers of voices in a language I didn't understand. Some looked at me with curiosity, others with distrust. I had no idea what I was walking into. Omari led me through the camp, past men sharpening weapons, women carrying baskets of fruit, children darting between huts made of wood and woven leaves. It was a world untouched by time, by modern hands. And somehow, I was here. Omari stopped at the edge of a small fire pit. Without a word, he gestured for me to sit. I lowered myself onto a woven mat, the warmth of the fire licking at my skin. Omari sat across from me, his broad shoulders casting shadows against the flickering flames. For a long time, he didn't speak. He just watched me. Finally, he asked, "Why did you come here?" I swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just—" I hesitated, unsure how to explain the rest. I was lost, searching, running from something. His gaze didn't waver. "No one comes here by accident." A shiver ran down my spine. And yet, here I am. Omari studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he leaned forward, his arms resting on his knees. "Do you know what happens to outsiders who enter our land?" I tensed. "You tell me." The fire crackled between us. "Some are sent away," he said. "Some never leave." I exhaled slowly, trying to ignore the weight of his words. "And what about me?" Omari's lips curled into the faintest smirk. "That depends." I frowned. "On what?" He held my gaze. "On whether you're worth keeping." A slow, tight knot formed in my stomach. His words weren't a threat. They were a challenge. I should have been afraid. Maybe I was. But underneath that fear, there was something else. Something far more dangerous. I wanted to know what he meant. I wanted to know what it meant to be kept. The night air was thick, heavy with tension. Omari's eyes burned into me, as if he could already see the answer I wasn't ready to admit. And deep down, I knew. Whatever was happening between us, it had already begun. The fire between us crackled, filling the silence with the scent of burning wood. The weight of Omari's words settled deep inside me, his gaze holding me still, as if he had already decided my fate before I could even comprehend it myself. "On whether you're worth keeping." The words echoed in my mind, heavy, dangerous. My pulse quickened, but I didn't dare look away. There was something unreadable in his expression. Curiosity, amusement, something darker beneath the surface. I should have asked what he meant. I should have demanded answers. Instead, I swallowed hard, steadying my breath. Omari leaned back slightly, as if satisfied by my silence. "You are a man without a home," he said, voice smooth, measured. "A man searching for something. You think I cannot see it?" My jaw clenched. He wasn't wrong, but admitting it, to him, to myself, was another thing entirely. "You don't know anything about me," I said finally. Omari smirked, the flickering firelight casting sharp shadows across his face. "I know enough." I exhaled, glancing around the village. The whispers had faded, but I could still feel the weight of unseen eyes on me. Watching, waiting. "You said some outsiders never leave," I murmured. "What happens to them?" Omari's smirk didn't falter. "They belong." A slow chill ran down my spine. "And if they don't want to?" Omari tilted his head slightly, considering my words. Then, without warning, he stood. I tensed as he moved toward me, his presence towering, commanding. Every instinct told me to get up, to step back, but I didn't. Instead, I remained frozen in place as he crouched down, close, too close. His fingers grazed my jaw, tilting my chin up slightly.
His touch was feather-light, but it sent a shock through me, igniting something I didn't understand. "Do you want to leave?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I should have said yes. I should have pulled away, but the words wouldn't come. Omari's gaze darkened, as if he already knew the answer, as if he had known it long before I did. "You are not a prisoner here," he said, his thumb tracing the edge of my jaw. "But you are mine now." A breath caught in my throat. Mine. It was a statement, not a question, a decision already made. And the worst part? I didn't fight it. Because for the first time since arriving in this strange, untamed place, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like I belonged. The air between us was heavy, thick with something unspoken. The fire crackled, sending shifting shadows over Omari's face, but his eyes never wavered from mine. "You are mine now." The words rang in my ears, sinking into me before I could stop them. A claim, a truth. I should have resisted, should have pushed him away, told him I didn't belong here. But I didn't move, because deep down, I knew. He wasn't wrong. Omari let his fingers linger on my jaw for a moment longer before he finally pulled away. The warmth of his touch faded, but the feeling it left behind was impossible to ignore. The rest of the tribe had fallen silent, their curiosity satisfied. I wasn't a threat. I wasn't leaving. They had accepted that. But I hadn't. Not yet. Omari stood and motioned for me to follow. I hesitated for a second before pushing myself to my feet, my body still sore from exhaustion, from the weight of everything I didn't understand. We walked through the camp, past flickering torches and watching eyes. I didn't know where we were going, but I didn't ask. I just followed. He led me to a smaller hut, tucked away from the others. The entrance was covered by woven fabric, shifting slightly with the breeze. Omari stepped inside first. I hesitated. "You hesitate now?" His voice was calm, but there was something behind it, something sharp. I swallowed and stepped in. The inside was simple. A low bed covered in animal skins, a few clay pots, a small fire burning in the corner. The scent of something unfamiliar filled the air, earthy, warm, intoxicating. Omari stood in the center, watching me carefully. "You still do not understand what has happened, do you?" I shook my head. "No, I don't." His expression didn't change. He stepped forward close enough that I had to tilt my chin to meet his gaze. "You think you are here by accident," he murmured. "But fate does not make mistakes." Something about the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. I exhaled. "You don't even know me." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "And yet I know exactly what you are feeling right now." My breath caught. Because he was right. Omari reached out again, his fingers brushing against my collarbone this time. A slow, deliberate touch. Testing. Waiting. I should have stopped him. I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't running. I was right where I was supposed to be. The silence between us was deafening. The air was thick, charged with something I couldn't name. Omari's fingers lingered against my skin, his touch light, almost testing, as if waiting for me to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. His presence consumed the space, grounding me in a way I hadn't felt before. For so long, I had been drifting, searching, never truly belonging anywhere. But here, now, under his gaze, I felt seen. His hand moved, fingers tracing up to the side of my neck. My breath hitched, but I didn't move. "You are not afraid," Omari murmured, his voice low, knowing. I swallowed hard. "Should I be?" His lips curled slightly. "Perhaps." My chest tightened. This should have felt wrong. I was an outsider.
a stranger. And yet, something about this place, about him, pulled me in. Omari's thumb brushed along my jaw, his touch deliberate, controlled. This was a man who never acted without purpose. "I told you," he said, his voice quieter now. "You are mine." The words settled in my chest, heavy and certain. Not a request, a truth. I could have denied it. I could have stepped away, broken the moment. But the firelight flickered, casting golden shadows against his skin, and all I could think about was how much I wanted to know what came next. So I didn't step back. I stepped forward. Omari's gaze darkened, something shifting between us. A slow exhale left his lips, as if he had been waiting for me to make that choice. And then he closed the space between us completely. His hands gripped my waist, firm and unyielding, and my breath caught as his lips met mine. Heat surged through me, burning hotter than the fire around us. His kiss was slow, deliberate, claiming, not just a kiss, but a promise. I felt it in the way his fingers pressed into my skin, in the way his breath mixed with mine. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't lost anymore. I had found what I had been searching for all along, and I was never leaving.